You've written for lots of seven-figure brands, coaches, consultants, supplement offers. You've written for a lot of stuff. What have you learned about the space that's different to when you first got started? Like, what was the big thing that you didn't expect the space to be like?
I think the biggest thing is really the mindset. In marketing, it's very easy to have an ego when things go right. I think the most important benchmark for me is comparing previous results.
How did you figure this all out in the early days? Did you have a coach, or did you have some copywriting chiefs, people supporting you?
Many people said, you're never going to make it. You have too much competition. Why would anyone hire you? And so I had all of these thoughts in my head. So one thing, again, that I always go back to is...
What would you say to copywriters looking to work with better clients? Like, where do they even start knowing who they should aim to work with and how they can find people like that?
It's all about you are who you surround yourself with. You have to be who you want to hire. If you surround yourself with bad clients, you're going to be a badly behaved copywriter.
Life experience makes you a better writer.
The market sophistication is changing, the offers are changing, and so
all right, I'm here with Daniella. You've written for lots of seven-figure brands, coaches, consultants, supplement offers. You've written for a lot of stuff over the last 4 years. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for having me. So exciting to be here.
What have you learned about the space that's different to when you first got started? Like, what was the big thing that you didn't expect the space to be like?
That's a very interesting question and a very hard question to start off. I think the biggest thing is really the mindset. It's not necessarily how much you know or how much you think you know, but it's how adaptable and how flexible are you, and are you willing to be to go through the process? Because I come from a background of marketing and also sales. And in marketing, it's very easy to have an ego when things go right. But one promotion will humble you incredibly quickly. And it's always so interesting because, sometimes you might want to apply one method to another company or another promo, and what works for one company may not work for another. So to answer your question, I think the biggest thing is just being incredibly flexible, understanding that there is no right or wrong. You have to be willing to just test as you go.
That's good. That's really good. Because a lot of copywriters, especially the ones just getting started now, they're learning from people that are like, oh, this is the way to do it. You have to do an email sequence this way. You should write an event page this way. You should do this that way. And then somebody else gives maybe conflicting advice. I mean, even recently with these interviews, we've been creating some thumbnails for the videos. And one person says the thumbnail should look this way. And then you can look on the internet or on YouTube, and there's a whole bunch of thumbnails that look completely the opposite. And both are working. So it's like, well, which one is the right way to go? And if you're not from an industry of creative work, that can definitely be they're quite difficult to, there's no right way to do it. I kind of just have to figure it out. How do I know when I'm making my client money like that,
Absolutely. And yeah, there is no right or wrong way. And one thing I like to do is I like to test. I love to look at numbers and say, okay, take the emotion out of it, because again, sometimes it's so easy to get your emotions wrapped up and think this isn't working. But you look at the numbers and you say, oh, well, this actually worked quite well for us. It didn't work as well if I compare apples to oranges. So I compare something that happened today to another company. But when I look back at our metrics and our history, I'm like, oh no, this performed actually pretty well for us.
So then there isn't one best open rate, or the industry's best open rate, or the best click-through rate. Because a lot of business owners are like, oh, everybody else has got a 30% this, or 5% this, or 7% this. Why don't we have that? How do you deal with that as a copywriter?
So what I've learned is, unfortunately, an email list can be a vanity metric. So sometimes business owners might think, oh, I have a list with 50,000 subscribers, or, maybe 100,000 or maybe 20,000. but you haven't segmented, you haven't emailed, you might have even bought the list. And so when you're sending out your offers or even just your nurture campaigns and you're wondering, how come we don't have this? What business owners don't look at is the source of the list. How did I grow it? How did I acquire it? So I specifically, of course, we love to hit benchmarks. Benchmarks are absolutely important. But I think the most important benchmark for me is comparing previous results. This is where we were, and this is where we should aspire to go. But if we can just aim for, additional 5%, additional 2%, it shows us moving in the right direction.
Right, yeah.
Because sometimes it's not necessarily correct. It's not necessarily about hitting an immediate goal. It's about moving in the right direction. Because again, coming back to what I said initially, you may not be able to apply every strategy to every client you work with. So you have to be able to understand, am I going in the right direction at least? Because the market's changing. What used to be an uneducated market is now an incredibly sophisticated market. So the market sophistication is changing, the offers are changing, and so the marketers have to adapt. How do you know if you are at least going in the right direction when so many things are happening all at the same time? Now, another metric is, if you're hitting your benchmarks, but then all of a sudden you start to tank. That's another reason to ask yourself why. So that I think is the only reason when I would go back to the benchmark. This is what we were doing before. We were hitting 30% open rates. All of a sudden, we're now hitting 12%, 13%. What's the reason for that? And that's where, a lot of it is, it's not necessarily just writing promos. It's about understanding the audience, understanding your list, understanding what moves them, what drives them, and I think we often get caught up in thinking, let me just send more emails, make more money. It doesn't always work like that. Some lists, you get more money when you send more emails. Some lists, the open rates actually go down. And I've seen this happen firsthand.
I've seen that too, actually. I had a client that had a very successful group of people that were reading his emails. And they didn't like more than 3 or 4 emails a week. They started to get irritated, like, why are you spamming me? Why are you sending me all these emails? Whereas another list that biz op junkies just want to buy the next thing, you could blast them with 2 emails a day and they're like super happy, and they respond even better. So
just bring it on.
In the early days, I would be like, I need to improve open rates and click-through rates. And my client's like, we need to get these better. And I was like pulling my hair out trying to figure it out. And then, over the last several years, I've not been so stressed about that when they want that, because it's like, you want me to double the open rate? Okay, let me just cut out half the segment. Like I can double the open rate, but you don't have half as many people,
That's right.
Or I can, to get the CTR up, I could just send them to something for free, and you can probably triple the CTR. But are they going to click? Are you going to have a high click-through rate if it's a book a call? If you're asking them to book a call, or if you're asking them to buy something, it's going to be a lower click-through rate than sending them something for free. So yeah, there's a lot of data that can be vanity data if you don't know how to use it. And actually, it's nice that you mentioned this relative, comparing to the previous, how the business performed previously, because it solves everything really. If you just look at it, it's like, okay, you want to improve. So the best place to start is to look at where we are now and aim to do a little bit better than that. And if the competitors have a slightly better open rate or click-through rate or whatever the other metrics are that they're measuring, the only way we're going to get there is by improving from where we are right now. Even if those numbers are realistic for that business as well, right? It's we still just have to start from where we are. How did you figure this all out? In the early days, did you have a coach, or did you have some copywriting chiefs, people supporting you?
So very interesting how I got started. So I've been writing 4 years. And prior to that, I sold insurance for almost a decade. And I always say, if you can sell insurance, you can sell anything. I was a top salesperson in the company. I ran for Rookie of the Year. And then the pandemic came. And so while doing that, I also opened up a travel agency. And then the pandemic came. And I live in Trinidad and Tobago, by the way. And something that a lot of people don't know is that our borders were closed probably the longest in the world.
Oh.
I think maybe Australia might have rivaled us, but we were closed, I think maybe about 18 months. So
Wow.
I had to figure out what could I do during that period. And there's something that troubled me about selling insurance and not being able to sell as I used to. So one of the things is that when you meet someone as an insurance salesperson, unless you are staying in contact with that person, unless that person is hearing from you every day, chances are the next time they're going to hear from you is when you're ready to sell them, not when they're ready to buy from you. So it was a bit of a conflict where you're trying to sell people. They may or may not be ready to hear from you or to sell from you. So I had an idea to, what if I start writing emails for insurance advisors? Because that's a really good way to stay in contact with someone and to build a relationship with someone. And so that's where I started. And I think I lost track of the question.
Oh, no. This is really interesting. So you started there, and then how did you transition into like the email stuff and copywriting?
Correct. So I started there, and then I transitioned into email. And it was quite a lovely journey, filled with lots of ups and downs, because the first few people that I showed it to, they thought this is a really cool idea. And those were the insurance salespersons. They're like, oh, this is a really, really good idea. But then I showed it to some marketers, and the marketers all said, this is a horrible idea. This is never going to work. Email does not work at all. So, I mean, I find one approach I take in my life is that I very rarely get upset or angry. I look at things as it is what it is. And so I find things very interesting. I'm a naturally curious person. And I thought, okay, well, maybe if the marketers are saying it may not work, but the people who might use it think it's a good idea, that's sort of 50-50 for me. So I decided to put it on the back burner. And this is going to lead into how I got my first client, because the very first guy who hired me to do the same thing that I was thinking of, except it was for doctors. It was for all doctors doing over 1 million annual revenue in the US. So there I was with my idea, thinking, this is how it should be. Not this is how it should be, but is this right? Am I going on the right path? And then someone hires me to do the right thing. And I realize, okay, it's just another step in the right direction. Have I hit my goal? No. So to answer your question, in the beginning, I was very fortunate. I had really good mentors. There was a group that I joined called the Black Copywriters Coalition, held by Donnie Bryant. And Donnie Bryant is fantastic. And he was so generous and genuine with his advice. There were things that I thought were right because I came from a sales background. And he said, okay, Daniella, no, you don't want to do it this way. You want to do it this way. So I give a lot of credit to that group for just picking me out of the wild and steering me in the right direction. And from there, when I got my first client, I only have lovely things to say about him, because he wasn't just a client. He was a copywriter turned a business owner. So there were many things that while working with him, I also saw him as a mentor. And then from there, and I realized, okay, so I'm stepping in the right direction, because there were also a lot of people along the way who told me this isn't a good industry to get into. Also, but being outside of the US, many people said, you're never going to make it. You have too much competition. Why would anyone hire you? And so I had all of these, these thoughts in my head. So one thing, again, that I always go back to is, am I heading in the right direction? So it's not necessarily something that I figured out from copywriting. It's just, I think, a life hack. Because if you listen to everyone around you, then you're not going to get the right information. People speak based on their level of experience. And when they've tried something and it hasn't worked, they're going to tell you that doesn't work. But we don't take into consideration the nuances involved. So maybe this didn't work because you were doing X instead of Y, and we tend to lump experiences all in one. So once I started heading in the right direction, then I started finding myself in the right groups, in the right company. I started making the right friends, the right circles. So then I joined Chris Orzechowski's, it wasn't one person agency, it was his email Copywriters Academy. I think that's the name of it. So I think that's one of the first things that I did. And then immediately after that, this is so interesting, I joined Chris Haddad's program.
That's where we met.
That's where we met, correct.
Yeah.
And I also give a lot of credit to Chris, both Chris's actually, but Chris Haddad was a super fantastic mentor in the beginning, because when I joined the PIG program, first of all, the PIG program was for high-level copywriters. So I found myself in there, but there was a lot of imposter syndrome. And I remember reaching out to Chris. I don't even remember what I said. I think I actually called one of the course names wrong. I said it incorrectly. I said, Chris, I'm having a hard time with this one. And he said, oh, you mean this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the one. He's like, well, wait a minute. This is actually a better name that you called it. You are a copywriter.
That's cool.
It was so cool. So what he actually did for me in maybe like 5 minutes or less was he just reaffirmed again that I'm on the right path. I'm on the right path. And to hear an A-lister copywriter like Chris Haddad say, you are a copywriter. I just melted. I fangirled. I probably shed a tear. I may have cried. But, it's
That's cool.
It's like having, again, you're just stepping in the right direction. So I often take a lot of my life experiences and apply it to work, business, because they're all interrelated. And again, if you listen to the wrong people, it's like watching the wrong metrics. If you surround yourself with the wrong ideas, it's like you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people. So it's very important to compare apples to apples and pay attention to what's important, not what everyone says is important, because what might be important for one business might not necessarily be important for another business. So for some companies, almost every company would like to have more revenue coming in. But one of our clients is actually more interested in growing his email list than he is growing his revenue from the email list right now. And if you're not paying attention to what's actually important, you can find yourself doing what you think is important. Have you ever read this book, The 5 Love Languages?
I've read a little bit of it here and there. So I'm familiar with the concepts.
With the concept, right? So just a segue, The 5 Love Languages talks about how each of us have a different love language. And many times what happens in relationships is relationships tend to break down because you and your partner might have a different love language, and how you want to be loved or how you think your partner should be loved is quite the opposite. And this happens in business too. As copywriters and as marketers, it can be very easy for us to do what we want to do because this is what we appreciate. But then that's not what the business owner is looking for. The business owner has their own goals. They've set their KPIs, their benchmarks. They know what they're looking for. And we're just brought in to help them meet their goals. So when we do what we want to do and we don't pay attention to what the client wants, that's when you start to see, you start to have the friction, you start to see things breaking down. Of course, we always want our clients to see us as the expert, but we have to be the expert in helping them achieve their goals, not in achieving our goals. Because it's nice to say, this email I wrote, brought in X amount, or this campaign brought in Y amount. But is that what the client wanted? Yes or no?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, supplement companies, for example, they want different things than businesses that have a personal brand. Personal brands are much more focused on remaining like in their voice than they are on getting an extra $5,000, because they're like, hey, this is my reputation. This is the way I speak. So a lot of copywriters that come from very direct response background, when they write copy for a personal brand, they're like, oh, but this is proven to work. This strategy, this type of sales copy, this is the way that we do it. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't sound like me. My audience is going to not like this. I don't really want this so much. Another thing I've noticed with personal brands is that they prefer getting their time back from writing copy more important to them than how much money the copywriter makes for them, because they know how to make the money. They know how to make the money. They don't need someone to make money. They can make money. They just need somebody to give them time back so they can go make more money. And that was an interesting perspective shift, because a lot of business owners or a lot of people teach that, like, oh, as a copywriter, you're coming into this industry to make your clients money. It's like, yeah, but like you said, depends on that business specifically. And I just want to bring up something as well that you mentioned. You mentioned Chris said something to you, like, you are a copywriter. I actually had a very similar experience when I got started in 2017. I was learning from a company called AWAI, because actually, I don't know if people know this story, but my uncle is actually a copywriter. He's been a copywriter for like 25 years. So that's actually how I found out about copywriting. I didn't find it from some guru course or whatever. He's a copywriter, yeah. But he's more of a content business writer than a copywriter. Like he writes for like white papers and like product information and like more B2B technical stuff, But my dad was chatting with him, and like, he's a copywriter, and my dad's like, hey, maybe you should check this stuff out, because writing is like, maybe you like it, So, he had gone through a program with AWAI, and I thought, okay, I'll go through something and see what it's like. So I went through this program, and when I went through the program, like, I had the coach tell me, you can write. This is very professional work. And so I was like, okay, I can do this, And that was kind of how I got started as a copywriter. So it's great to get that kind of feedback and get when you get started, because it's like, ever since that moment, I always kind of felt like I could do this. Whereas I think some people getting started, they kind of want to do it, but they don't know. No one like really good has told them that they can do this. Whereas I had somebody tell me who makes 6 figures, this is very professional work. They barely gave me any feedback. It's like, okay, maybe I can do this, And I'm a big believer in that. But I think that the challenge for a lot of people is that the amount of positive feedback they get versus negative feedback is like, they get a lot more negative feedback, especially from people that don't know the industry or don't know how it works. So it's like, you have to find this way. I don't know, how did you find a way to, like, block out the negative feedback and like only focus on the positive stuff?
So again, it comes back to what I said earlier, right? If you surround yourself with the wrong people, you're going to get the wrong advice. And I have been very fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, throughout my life to want to do things that people say, Daniella, that is an absolutely bad idea. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I always bet on myself. I firmly believe in betting on myself, because if I don't bet on myself, then who will? And that's a philosophy that I carry. So I take very calculated risks, and I weigh the pros and cons. What's going to happen if I follow this advice? What's going to happen if I don't follow this advice? So if someone says that, okay, your work isn't that good, then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll find other ways to improve myself. And nobody said I wasn't good, but I kept telling myself I wasn't good, because I tend to compete with myself so very hard. So in trying to just keep getting better, I always told myself, you're not good enough. You're not where you need to be. So I just kept learning more and more and more. And I think in this industry, it's very important that you keep learning. Like there is no end point. You have to keep learning. You have to stay on top. But that's what I did. I just did what I normally do and weigh the pros and cons. If people were right and I was actually good, then this would become quite a lucrative career for me. And I don't know how many people do this, but we all have different reasons why we got into copywriting, right? I just gave a brief story of how I got into it, but why I got into it is a little bit different. And for me to go into any industry, there are 3 things that it must have. It must be noble. So I must be able to help people. Everything I do, it must be able to help. It cannot have just a selfish end result for me. So whatever I do has to massively help people. It has to have an uncapped income. Because when I came up with these 3 rules, it's because I had a business before and I could not get financing for it. So that's actually how I ended up in insurance, because I said, okay, well, whatever I do to self-fund, it has to be able to have an uncapped income because I'm going to need to fund this business really hard. And it has to have a flexible time because I'm a mother and I believe in putting family first. And I'm not going to ask for time off if my daughter needs me. And now that I'm married, if my husband says something, I mean, I'm not going to ask for time off. I'm going to say, okay, hey, it has to get done. And so it has to be able to allow me to work on timings that are flexible for me. So when I ask myself, okay, is this going to allow me to fulfill those 3 criteria? The answer is yes. And because I know a lot of people don't think about business or anything along these lines, again, you have to be able to compare and ask, the person who's giving me this advice, do we believe the same things? Do we have the same goals? Do we have the same reasoning behind why we're doing what we're doing? Yeah, so because I know many people don't apply criteria like this to whatever they do, their job, their life, you always have to ask yourself if the advice that you're getting falls in line with the way that you're thinking. Because I have long-term goals, I have long-term vision. It's not just about doing this today, but I want to create a life where I have freedom to be happy. I don't know if you can see this behind me, but like one of my mantras is be happy. I see too many people unhappy, doing things they don't like, and life is short. Life is incredibly short. I've had a few near-death experiences that have shown me you have to do what makes you happy. And those 3 things make me happy. Is it noble? Am I helping someone? I believe in giving value. And there's something I always tell my clients. When I leave you, my goal is to leave you in a better place than I met you. You must never hire me and walk away thinking, I wish I never met her. I wish I never worked with her. Everybody who has interacted with me, that's my number 1 goal, to leave you in a better place than I first met you. So even if it's just an interaction, there's a saying, be kind because you don't know what everyone else is going through. I totally believe in that. So just like a kind word, somebody might be having an awful day, but a kind word leaves them in a better place than when I met them. Somebody might be struggling to figure something out. If I've been there, I'd offer advice to say, well, here's how I solve this problem. So that's how I figure things out. That's how I know. Don't listen to bad advice. there's also another saying, don't take advice from someone who you will not switch places with.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of people that follow advice, especially younger people that I've had the opportunity to coach, where they're, maybe they got into the space because there's a lifestyle that they aspire to have, like some guru, and the guru doesn't actually have the same values as them. Guru doesn't actually have the same business ethics as them. Guru doesn't exactly isn't even doing the same work to make money, right? So it's like, you want to have this life and you're following such and such a person. One of my first mentors, actually, he said this, it was really good. He says, if take your advice, I'm going to get your life. It sounds very similar to what, you've been sharing with me about the 3 things that you always make sure are part of the work that you do. It's like, for me, it's, if I'm going to learn from somebody, if they have something, or if they have a life I want, I'm more willing to take their advice on that subject, because everybody's like at different stages with everything. So, I mean, I'll take business advice from a business person. I might not take marriage advice from a business person if I see that they don't have the relationship that I'm particularly interested in having, So I think that's something that I live by, is, take your advice, you're going to get your life. But of course, there's always a balance where it's like, I'm also interested in hearing what people's perspective is that don't necessarily have my life, but there's still an objective outside perspective, But yeah, that's a real big thing. I think a lot of copywriters, they get caught up and work with businesses that they don't really enjoy working with, and then they think copywriting's the issue. They think, oh, I know copywriting is, I don't really like copywriting. I don't like working for clients. And my experience has always been very positive. It's like, no, I love working for clients, because all the people I've worked with, I always believe in the thing I'm working. The copy I'm writing, I always believe in it. There's been 1 or 2 clients that didn't believe in it, and I could feel the difference. And so a lot of copywriters that have nightmare clients, it's like that. It's like, you don't believe in the product, you don't really resonate with the values of the business owner, you don't really like the results of the product's creating on the marketplace. If it's scammy, for sure, right? And maybe you're not even interested in the topic. So what would you say to copywriters looking to work with better clients? Like, where do they even start knowing, like, who they should aim to work with and how they can find people like that?
So that's a twofold question, because one of the reasons I think I have such a good time with clients is because I have tons of experience, tons of varied life experiences across lots of different events, different scenarios. And what sometimes I hear people say, this product wouldn't work, or this product is scammy. And I've had the experience to know, oh no, it's not that the product is scammy. Sometimes the people behind it are scammy. So I'll give you a really good example. So network marketing. Everybody hates network marketing. You think network marketing is so scammy. I'll tell you firsthand. I did network marketing, and I thought it was such a fantastic experience, because it gives the average person the ability to learn to sell, which most people will never get in their life. You need to learn to sell. It doesn't matter whether you're in sales, whether you're in business, whether you are an employee. It really doesn't matter. Grant Cardone has this book called Sell or Be Sold. And it's one of the books that actually changed my life, because the premise is that in life, you are either selling something or you are being sold. And if you can take that for business, but you can also take that to your personal life, because Matthew, if you and I are having a discussion, you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum. We have opposing views. What both of us are trying to do is sell each other our opinion on the topic, right? And we're going to do that in a variety of ways. We're going to come up with different arguments. We're going to present different statements. But at the end of the day, what we are trying to do to each other is we are trying to sell our own opinions. If you translate that to families, like parents have to sell to their kids why you need to go to bed at 8 p.m. You can tell them, do it because I told you to do it. But the better way to train children is to have them understand why they're doing what they're doing, because then it's not forced action. I'm doing it because I want to do it. And so when it comes to working with clients, again, so because I have such a wide variety of experience. I also have the ability to look at things with an unbiased view. So it's not necessarily my bias saying, oh, well, I don't like this because I've heard other people say it or because I've had a bad experience. I can look at something objectively and say, okay, does it do this, that, that? Does it help or does it harm? Anything that's harmful, I will not do. Anything that takes money out of people's pockets. So coming back to network marketing, the flip side of network marketing is Ponzi scheming.
Yeah.
That is insanely harmful. Funny enough, that's the one that people run down, which is so interesting for me. But you have to ask yourself, does this help or does this harm? And if you allow yourself to experience the product, you might change your mind, but in some cases you might not be in a position to. So, quick story. My first client, one of the things that I wrote for is erectile dysfunction. Now, erectile dysfunction for women is an insanely uncomfortable topic. We don't want to know about this. We don't even want to know that men go through this. Please, we just don't.
It's funny.
But it can happen to men at any stage of their life. So how do you, as a copywriter, take off your bias and say, hey, I have to write about this? And I wrote for, I think, either 3 or 4 clients with erectile dysfunction. What actually got me through that is in 2022, not 2022. When I was 22, sorry. When I was 22, don't start adding up my age yet, but when I was 22, I damaged my back in Antigua. And I was taken to the hospital there. And the doctor, for some strange reason, he was specializing in erectile dysfunction. So he was a GP and then he was specializing. And he took the opportunity to talk to me while I'm in extreme amounts of pain about his research on erectile dysfunction.
No, that makes sense.
I was in no shape or form to listen, but I had to sit there and listen because I can't move. I can't do anything.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, I'm wide and I'm like, please make it stop. Years later, here I am writing for erectile dysfunction and I'm totally desensitized because it's a natural part of life.
Interesting.
But I saw other writers, say, we can't do this. We just can't do this. And they eventually left.
Well, it's actually funny because there's like 3 copywriters that I've coached that all females, and they all write for erectile dysfunction offers. And it's like, why is there this pattern that women are writing for these offers instead of guys? There's only one guy copywriter I know that writes for erectile dysfunction offers. It's like, it seems to be
crazy.
such a profitable niche in copywriting.
It is.
So,
It is.
people are putting a lot of money into it, that's for sure.
You need the help. So the other side of the question, how to find clients that you work with is you have to be who you want to hire.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's true.
I've seen a lot of people adopt a take approach versus a give approach. How much can I take? What's in this for me? How much can I get? And for me, that's not necessarily the case. Of course, I have bills to pay. I charge premium rates. So it's never a case where this is a charity. But once you decide that you're working with a client, then I'm always thinking, okay, what more can I do within the capacity that I have? Because you don't always have the capacity. But what can I do that will be really helpful to my clients? How can I add value to them? How can I, just again, leave them in a better place? So whether the relationship works out or not, here you go. Thank you very much. And if we approach things from all of this is going to build me. the experience, because you can also learn from bad clients what not to do. You can also learn from good clients, so even if you might have like a bad experience, again, I used to work with someone, and we had a manager who I was on very good terms with them, but she wasn't. And so there would always be, lots of contention in the office. And one of the reasons that we had such differing opinions is because she was very opposed to the things that he did. And she didn't like it. She didn't like his style. She didn't like this. And I said, well, there are two ways you can look at it. You can either look at it like, oh my gosh, I hate this guy, or oh my gosh, I'm never going to do these things to impact my staff the way he's impacting me right now. And so that's the way I looked at it. So there's, because nobody's perfect. We're all learning. Again, there's no right or wrong. Nobody has hit the golden mile mark of perfection. We're all still learning. So if you approach everything with, I'm here to become a better person, how is this going to help me on my journey to be a better person, to be a better copywriter? For me, it's also, if I take on this client, do I still get to be a good mother? Do I still get to be a good wife? Or is this client going to have me so anxious that I'm driving my entire family nuts?
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, because sometimes like you have a client that's not a good client, and it's like that client ruins the way you are to everybody else that deserves your best. It's like I had a bad client, and they were making me work a lot, and I wasn't setting boundaries properly, and I should have just let the client go sooner, but I didn't want to let the client go because I was like, oh, I want the money and stuff, And the client made me work a little bit more. I wasn't giving my best to my other clients. People could feel the difference. People around me could feel a little bit of the pressure. Fortunately, I don't tolerate that for very long as a person. I've never really tolerated negative energy for a very long time. I'm just, patient a little bit, but if there's no change, it's like I'm out of there. But I like this, I don't know where I heard this, maybe I heard this from somewhere, but it's like, if you say yes to the wrong person, you're saying no to the right people, And it's like, if you struggle to say no, if you struggle to set boundaries with people that you work with, an easy reframe is you're actually saying no every single day. It's just, you're saying no to the people that you care about the most when you say yes to these people that step on your boundaries. So, protect the people you actually care about, and say no to the people that you should be saying no to instead of saying no to them,
That's right. So if you compare that to sell or be sold, every day something is trying to sell itself for your attention, including bad clients. They're trying to sell why they're a good reason to keep working with you. Money is always a great one at the top of the list.
Yeah, for sure.
The money, I do want the money. But then you have to ask yourself, and you have to sell back in your head, this is why I won't do this. It's because I need to get that, right? I don't work with many clients at a time. I work with 3 to 4 clients max. And I hope maybe next year, or my intention next year, is to reduce that to 2. And the reason for that is some people have the capacity to do a million things at once. I don't. And it's also about knowing your boundaries. What one person may be able to do really well doesn't mean that you can do it. And so what I found happening when I tried to, go as fast as I can, is I felt like I was shortchanging someone. If I wasn't shortchanging the client, and when I say shortchanging, I don't mean I wasn't doing my deliverables. I just wasn't able to do extra. I was only able to meet my deliverables, and that's it. But, when that starts to happen and you find yourself working 20 hours out of a 24-hour day, I need my sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is one thing that I do not play with. I need my sleep, because it's fine when you're in your early 20s that you can do the all-nighters. You can, pull very long hours of work. But what we often don't see is how that affects you going forward. And many times we become blinded. So we think, oh no, you know what, I'll just pull an all-nighter and then I'll go and I'll, just do my regular work after. We don't understand the impact of lack of sleep on the brain. And as a writer, what we write needs to be coherent to the reader.
Yeah.
So with a tired brain, we might think that we're doing a lot. But when you read it, maybe 24 hours later, 36 hours later, you look back and you say, wow, I can't believe I wrote that crap. I will take a nap the next time.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a nap.
It's true. Mm.
It's true. So, in setting boundaries with clients, because when you want to give so much, boundaries become a problem. Because, it's very difficult to say no because your heart wants to say yes, but then your capacity says, no, you can't. And sometimes I've found that, not sometimes, when you don't set proper boundaries, what happens is the clients are the ones who get frustrated. Because all of a sudden you're trying to just say, okay, well, hang on. Let me just get something else done and then I'll come back. And some fires are always burning. Some clients always have fires that need putting out immediately. And when you just need to take a step back and, maybe just need to take a nap, you might have a headache. It's been a long day. Client may not necessarily want to hear that. So, we sort of deviated, as we like to say here. We treevade all over the place. In looking for clients and, trying to figure out who's the client that I should work with, I'm definitely going to come back to saying, be more of who you want to hire. Another thing I'll just sort of stick in there is, I don't see myself as a freelancer. And that's a thought I've struggled with. I'm a business owner. And maybe it's because I've owned businesses before and I take a top level approach. I don't see myself as just a freelancer bouncing in, bouncing out. I see myself as a partner. I'm not your employee, but I'm your partner to help you achieve X goals. And many clients, what they're looking for is they're looking for contractors, which fits the rule perfectly. But sometimes, clients may want you to do a little extra. So like some of my clients, depending on the nature of the agreement, we meet once a week. Some of my clients, we don't meet at all. We don't speak. We just update in the Slack channel. So you have to, again, be more of who you want to hire. Sorry, be more of who you want to hire. See yourself as a business owner, because then you look at things a bit differently. You look at things, sometimes you might think a business owner might be being unfair to you. But when you look at it, like there was a client that I lost. So I'm the, how would we say that? I'm the outsourced person. So in an agency, I'm working with this client, but I'm subcontracted because I'm working for another client. And I lost one of the clients to a new copywriter who came in. And it's because my technical skills were not as good as the new copywriter coming in. And so the client, well, my client, he says, Daniella, I'm really so sorry. I feel so guilty because you're going to lose the income. And I said, I've thought about this, and if I were you, I'd do the same damn thing. So I'm like, at the end of the day, it's just money. And it is your business. And if I'm not able to give you what this client needs, then rather than you lose the client, I'd rather, you lose me. It's your business.
I like that a lot. I resonate with that a lot.
I'm always ready to walk away. Like, I'm always ready to walk away as long as it's for the greater good. And when I say walk away, I'm not walking away with a backup plan. I'm not walking away because I have clients waiting. I'm walking away because it's the right thing to do. You know, sometimes things happen. Sometimes relationships don't go as you would like them to go. And I don't believe in being unhappy. I don't believe in, tolerating bad behavior. There's a rule we have in this house. My husband told me like very early when we got together, under no circumstances will there ever be bad behavior. And I just love that so much because, we are so tempted, like whenever, things aren't going our way, we are tempted to act out. We are tempted to take it out on the person who is within our closest vicinity. And that's something that I've learned to live by. Under no circumstances will there be bad behavior, or will bad behavior be tolerated. Sometimes people don't know they're behaving badly. So I think it's our duty to, let people know, hey, this isn't going as well as I wanted it to go. And, for me, talking is everything. But some people are badly behaved. And there are very badly behaved clients. And you have to know when to remove yourself from the situation so that you don't become badly behaved. Because have you seen this meme going around? There's a meme with a bunch of apples. And all of the apples are fresh. But one of the apples is rotting. And it's right next to another apple. And right on the rotting spot of the first apple, where it touches the second apple has started to rot. Oh. It's all about you are who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with bad clients, you're going to be a bad copywriter. You're going to be a badly behaved copywriter.
True. You're not even going to get experience with that.
You're not.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're not. But I try to surround myself with people who have the same values as me. So are you easygoing? I'm insanely easygoing, but I have boundaries. I'm very flexible. Are you filled with joy? Are you a naturally happy person? I'm a very happy person. It's difficult to work with people who are not happy because happiness, it spreads. And a lack of happiness, when people they're so, you can see sadness in people. It translates to business. Some people, they want to make more money because they think more money will bring them happiness. And that doesn't always happen. And so if you ever find yourself working with people like that, it can change who you are. You can become someone who becomes totally cynical. So I look for certain qualities in clients that match mine. Are you joyful? Are you happy? Are you do you have integrity? Matthew. That's like one of my biggest things. Do you have integrity? Not everyone has integrity. And if you want to know whether a business is going to stick around for years and years, or if it's going to collapse soon enough, ask yourself if the business owner has integrity. Ask yourself if the business itself has integrity. Because, I think we mentioned this earlier, but some people are selling products that they don't actually use. Some people are giving advice that they wouldn't give their own clients and that they wouldn't take in their own business. If there's a lack of incongruence in what you say and what you do, best believe that is going to show up somewhere later down in the business. It's either going to show up within your clients or it's going to show up within your team. So, when I'm looking at a client, I'm not just looking at the money. because we know there are lots of high-paying jobs going around. But I'm trying to understand the owners behind it. What's the purpose behind this? Do we have, and some things we're not going to be able to see immediately, but when I get on a call, on an interview, that's one of the things I ask clients, like, what are your personal values, to see if they match mine.
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes clients ask me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they ask me, what are your personal values? Because I'm your partner. Just as much as you're hiring me, I'm agreeing to work with you. Because you're paying me, I still need to be able to deliver. And for me to deliver, I'm not a machine. I'm not devoid of emotions. I need to be comfortable. I need to appreciate the work that we're doing. So sometimes in business, you might have a slump. You never know why you have a slump, but what will always rally me through is, do I believe in the business owner? Some people are inherently good people. They just have an idea. They just need some help to take it off. Some people are tricksters, and they don't realize that they're tricksters. And they keep, having business failure after business failure, and they don't understand why. There's often a lack of incongruence in their word. They have a lack of integrity, poor values. They negatively impact the people around them.
Yeah, there's a few I can think of, and I can give you one, especially for those listening. There's a lot of coaches that teach people how to make money online, and they teach, let's say, I don't know, copywriting, or being a social media marketer, or being a sales closer. And they say, with this role, you can make $10,000 a month. And they have salespeople in their team. They have copywriters in their team. They have a social media agency that they pay. And I've been in a few of those teams. They don't pay their team the money that they promise the people that they're coaching. The salespeople in their team, the same team that promises to make $10K a month, their salespeople get $5,000 or $6,000. The copywriter is getting $3,000. And it's like, to me, that's very... To me, that's odd. That's odd. It's incongruent. It's like, you're saying that the dream clients, the best clients out there for copywriters, the best ones are the ones that are able to pay you $10K a month, and yet you're not paying your team that. Are you not a best client to work with then? Like, why? Because they're like, oh, like, you're working in our team, what an opportunity, you're gonna learn so much. It's like, yeah, and get paid so much, right? Because that's what I'm expecting, because that's what you preach on social media. So yeah, no, I really like that question. I'm going to actually use that when I talk with someone, like, especially a business owner, like, what are your personal values? Like, how do you build your business? What is the vision that you have for the company? Like, how do you want to create this? One business, a coach that I worked with before, said he spent the first 15 minutes when we started working together. He asked me, Matthew, what are your goals 3 or 4 or 5 years from now? Because my goal as the leader of this team is to create a business big enough that it can also help you achieve all of your goals at the same time. And I'll tell you, that was the client I worked with the longest of all the clients I've ever worked with. I went through, 10 should I quit, should I stay moments, and those I'm going to stay moments were because of how much that person's values and integrity was in his team. And so I actually didn't stay for the money. There were a lot of opportunities that were a lot higher paying, and I was like, not interested. I like this person. I like his value system. So, that's really good. And the other thing that you mentioned, where you understand what a business owner is going through. When we were a bit back, you were saying, like, you lost a client, essentially. You lost one of the deals that you were working on for as a what's the right word? Like a contractor, like outsourced contractor. Yeah, I had a client that was struggling financially. Their offer wasn't going as well as it was before. And they said to me, like, hey, Matt, love working with you. This is not the conversation we want to have. But just the money's not coming in. Like, it's not working so well. And I said, no. Like, don't worry. I understand. If I was in your shoes, I would be making the same decision right now. Like, I would have to cut expenses, and I would have to look to, maximize where possible. Like, let me work with you here. Let's figure this out, And sure enough, we had a slightly lowered rate. I halved my retainer. I did half the work. I didn't let them make me do the same amount of work for the same price, which is what some people might do. I was like, yeah, no, that's okay. We can do less work, but less pay, but also less work. And sure enough, their business took off 7 months later again. And we went back to the same previous rate. And I think a lot of people, a lot of copywriters I've coached even would have said like, oh, why are you keeping that client? Like the client's paying so little. It's like, well, I'm going to be there for them during the difficult times too, because I know that they're a good business. And sure enough, they turned around and the retainer went back up again. And it's like, yeah, I like working with them. I'm like willing to match that. And I'm the longest, I've been in their team longer than anybody else. And they say to me, Matthew, we always really appreciate everything that you do for us, and you've always been there and stuff. And I like to work that way with clients. And I think good clients do appreciate that. So it's nice to hear that you've also had similar experience.
You said something so important that I totally resonate with, because I do it as well. I would choose whether I like working with you over how much are you paying me. That's where I would base my benchmark on. Do I stick around, or do I say the money's not worth it? Because many times you're going to, it's inevitable. Business doesn't always follow a linear path. And business owners, every experienced business owner knows that you are going to have hills and you're going to have valleys. And it's usually in the valleys that people start leaving. You start having your separation. And I always feel like, okay, do I like you enough to work with you at a lower rate? And if I like you enough, then I'll do it. If I don't like you, then it will probably be time to, move away. And it may not be a case where I don't like you in the general sense, but maybe our values are no longer aligned. Because I've had that with clients. I've had where we started off and we were so in line, we were so in sync. And then as the business grew, the values started changing. And I had to say to myself, this is not who I want to work with. This is not the kind of work I want to do. This does not make me happy. So I've been in a few coaching courses. I've been in, have had a few mentors, and I did Chris Orzechowski's one-person agency, sorry. And one of the questions that he asked, Chris, I'm sorry if you hear this. I hope I'm not giving out any trade secrets. But one of the questions that I thought was so defining for me was, does this activity energize you, or does it drain you? And so I learned how to build a business from, Chris's method. And taking that into consideration, I always ask myself, is it going to energize me, or is it going to drain me? And unfortunately, when you work with people who you don't like, or their values don't align, or the relationship is no longer what it was, and it's not worth it anymore, those things start to drain you. And then you become a drain to everyone else. And you don't realize it. So, it's always very interesting in terms of thinking about, relationships, client relationships. Who do you work with? What criteria do you use to stick around? And for me, that's always a moving target, because who we are today is not who we were yesterday, and it shouldn't be. Well, depending on the criteria you're using, but it may not be who we are tomorrow. And so we always have to be willing to look at people and not hold them to maybe old expectations. That's the thing. Because we have to allow people to grow. We have to allow people to grow. We have to allow businesses to grow. We have to allow businesses to make the decisions that suit them. It's the same thing with our personal lives. Like, we need people to allow us to grow in the right direction. And sometimes that means saying yes to certain things and saying no to others.
And there are many other ways other than money to just measure like a client relationship, because, well, the interesting thing is that if you have like less energy, even if you're getting paid more, because you have less energy, your output is, I've done a couple of little calculations, like write it down. I'm like, if I take, let's say, 3 hours to write an email and I charge $200, okay, the hourly rate is like 70, that's like, what's like 90 or something. It's like, it's around there. But now if I'm, or 80, something like that, not actually that, yeah, hang on. Let me get this right. 3 hours, $200, it's like 70 something dollars per hour. But if you really like the client, you really believe in the product, you're sold on the product, you might actually end up writing that email in 1 hour. Even if you're charging $150, which is less money, you're actually, first of all, you're writing the email faster, your hourly rate's like almost double, right? So now you're making $150 for the same hour, and you're energized afterwards. And how does that show up to the rest of your day? So if you have one bad client in the morning, okay, you make a little bit more money on paper, but it takes a lot more of your time, takes a lot more of your energy and health, right? Because now you actually got to try and reduce the negative energy somewhere else. You got to try and get rid of that energy and like transfer it. So it just really costs a lot more. And I think people look at money, especially if you've come from a 9-to-5 or an employee context, it's like money is very much like the only metric that you measure it by, because the rest is all static. It doesn't change because you don't have much control over it. But when you're in the freelance world, or, I mean, I also consider it more of a business like you do. I don't really see myself as a freelancer. But when you're in this world, you can kind of move each piece. You can adjust. It's like, okay, I'm willing to work for a little bit less money because I'm getting more energy, and it's actually easier to write this copy than this client. This client actually is a little bit harder to write the same copy. So like, even how much should you charge, which is a question some people ask. It's like, well, it depends. It depends, right? It's like, I'll charge one client $250 for an email because I'm talking to people that are millionaires. It's going to take time to think about what to say to them. I'm going to charge $150 for an email talking to people about how to build an Amazon business because I know how to talk to those people. That's very easy. That's a very different conversation. So yeah, it's there's a lot of things to think about. I get the impression that you really just enjoy, if that's the right word for it. It's like you just enjoy, like you enjoy the journey, you enjoy the experience, you enjoy learning about all these different businesses. I think a lot of people make entrepreneurship feel like this constant sacrifice, but your perspective is very refreshing because it's like everything is this exciting thing that you're looking forward to learning next, you're looking forward to doing. You leave a client, but you're optimistic. Whereas a lot of copywriters that are getting started, like, oh, I don't got to hustle, I haven't got any results this month, I'm so frustrated, and it's like, I don't know, like that's just negative, a bit of negative energy. So,
there's there are two ways you could look at the world. You can look at it as everything is doom and gloom, or you can say, okay, it is what it is. It just is what it is. There's no right, there is no wrong. Everything is really dependent on how you want to make it. And I don't know about anybody else, Matthew, but I'm going to live a good life. I'm going to do exactly what I want. I'm going to be happy every day. I'm going to work with great people. I'm going to bring great results. I'm going to have a fantastic time doing what I love. And that's just the way I live my life. I'm very curious about people's business. Maybe I have shiny object syndrome, but I always want to know, how are you making money? I would like teach me the ins and outs of your business. I want to know. And copywriting is a really good way to just be sneaky about someone's business. Yeah. Because business owners, they don't always have the time. Like, I hired you to write, like, I don't have time to teach you. But ever so often, you're going to find a client who is so, they're so open to just talking more and more and more about their business. So I've found that the clients I work best with are the clients that we are on such a personable level. You don't need to tell me what to write. In fact, most of my clients don't need to tell me what to write. But one of my clients, I remember, we were actually Facebook friends before, when I had a Facebook account. RIP my Facebook account.
Oh no.
But
That's a story for another day, isn't it?
That's a story for another day. But, I would look at his Facebook account and I would see him post things. And I'm like, oh, that's a good story. And that's what the email would be. And it would be totally off script. It would lead to what we're promoting, but it's because I knew the client and I had insight into his personal life that I was able to write very quickly, because I knew firsthand what he was doing. I saw him post about it. I know exactly what we're promoting, and it just leads to a fantastic result. But, I find the easiest way to live life is to just be curious. Be curious, be optimistic, always, look for what's next. There's always something good around the corner. I have my friend and I, we laugh about this all the time, but our favorite saying is, but did you die? Do you remember? I can't remember which show it was from, but it was, it was like a bachelor party movie, something like that. And the Asian guy, after everything, he's taken them through hoops, like really near-death experiences, and he just looks at them, but did you die? And nobody's died.
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, did you die? Like, we've almost died. We've had
it wasn't that bad.
Experiences. Yeah. And that's it. I think when you live life, I'm such a careful person. I dot my I's, I cross my T's, but some of the strangest things happen. Like, if you ever want to hear weird stories, you just call me and say, Daniela, what's your weirdest story? And I have a gazillion to tell you.
Oh,
the
good.
strangest things happen to me, but you can look at life and say, why me? Why me again? Or you can take that and turn it around and say, why not me? So, sometimes we think products might be preying on a certain type of person, or, this is really scammy. We have to understand that people are in different emotional spaces at their life. And people need different things at different points in time. What you might think you need because you're happy and cheerful every day may not be the person who is desperate. They don't know what to do. They just need a glimmer of hope. And, that's something that we also have to recognize as copywriters. And you learn that when you allow yourself to have a range of life experiences. One of the really cool things, again, that I enjoyed with Chris Haddad's program is it gave me validation for my own life. Because, again, I've had tons of ups and downs. And people often say, well, wow, you came back from that really good. And I always say, I didn't have a choice. What's the next choice? Lie down and do nothing. So when you, as a copywriting is also storytelling. Yeah. When you allow yourself to have experiences, you allow yourself to fail. Failing was a huge thing for me. I'm not accustomed to failing. But when you allow yourself to fail, you allow yourself to go through the emotions of the market. You allow yourself to experience things that your market is currently struggling in. That's why you need to sell them this product. We're never selling to people who have it all. We're selling to people who are missing something. And if you've been there and you've missed that one thing that you're currently selling, you know exactly how to tap into those emotions because you've been there.
Yeah, I often say like the best clients are the ones that will have the product that you once bought, because you know
Absolutely.
you know what it's like. And copywriters who have had some life experience that don't still live at home with their parents, like they tend to be slightly better writers, even if they have no like official training. And it's like, I wonder why. It's because maybe they had to pay rent and they were stressed about it once. Or maybe they have a kid and now they know what it's like to work for somebody other than just themselves. So they feel like sometimes they're falling behind. Or they don't feel like they're available for somebody. Or they don't feel like they're there for their partner because they've been in a long-term relationship. Like life experience makes you a better writer. And this is actually why I've noticed a lot of personal brands, they're really, really good with their words. They're really good they're like good copywriters, even though they've never like been through a copywriting course. And it's like, how come they're so good? It's like, well, they're very clear about what they want. They're clear on their values. They're clear where they're going. And they've just got a lot of experiences and stories that they can share. So it's like, that's where it's at, No, I love this. This is the way I also want to operate my business. Like I want to live every day, making my life better, being a better person, but also like making an effort to help everybody be better off than when I first started working with them. And actually, that's one of the things. If you ask my team, that's one of the things I tell them about the dojo is like, I want to make sure that no matter who joins, they always leave even if it's just a little bit of a better spot than when they started, they always leave in a better place than when they started. And that's why we don't accept people that like jump into, let's say like a massive credit card loan to get in or something. Because I'm like, no, if you're going to do that, then you're like from day one you're in a worse off place, unless of course it's somebody that's willing to do that and they've done that before. But it's like, I'm not going to put somebody in a worse situation.
Calculated risks.
Right? Yeah. Like I found that served us really well. That's why we've been able to build a good community, is because it's always about how can we all make each other's lives better and not what can we get from each other, And I think that if people do that, then they're going to make money for themselves and their clients are going to be happy too. So
absolutely. So the email dojo is, I think, by far the best community I've ever been in, by far. And when I say that, I'm specifically referring to the level of camaraderie. You're going to get a ton of things from different communities, and this also goes back to knowing exactly what you want and who you are as a person, and what do you want out of this business. And one of the things that I really needed was community, because being in the Caribbean, there aren't many people here. I don't have a wide network. I don't have any network at all to, sit down and just chop up stuff and say, let's do this together. Let's work on this together. I'm pretty much doing this by myself. So I always have to, build a network. And when I joined Email Dojo, it was for the community. It was also to improve my skills, but it was also for the community. And one of the cool things about the community is how freely people give, how freely and how much, like how many people can respond on something. So that just like that is just a testament to the caliber of copywriters in the dojo. So you've done I don't know how many times I've told you this, but you've done such a fantastic job in curating the membership of the dojo, because it's one of the happiest places that I find myself all the time. Like I don't always get to, check up like before, but it's such a cool space to just look and see someone ask a question and maybe 5 people will give a response, or 5 people will share with you how they do it, as opposed to, you ask a question and only the program owner is the person who can give a response, or, people know, but they just won't see. So yeah, kudos to that. Fantastic.
I really appreciate that.
I love you're welcome. I love every month I've been in has been great. And I think also the one of the greatest things for me is it's allowed me to push myself even more, because I already had a definition of success. But then when I saw what other people are doing, I'm like, oh, I should rewrite this.
Yeah. That's fun. I often see that too. I'm like, the last few weeks I haven't been as productive as I usually am. And then like my clients like asking me, you know, the people in the dojo asking me questions, and then like, what did you get up to today? And then they give me this list of stuff that they got done. And I'm like, damn, I did like half of that today. I gotta push myself some more, you know? So no, I love that. Thanks so much, Daniella. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you? I know your Facebook is not currently active. If people want to get in touch with you and connect and maybe even work with you, where can they find you?
So people can definitely find me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, okay.
I am trying to be more active. I struggle with LinkedIn, to be honest. I struggle with LinkedIn because I see it as this overly professional platform. But I'm a really friendly person. Not so friendly, but...
You can change it. You can change that impression.
And I think, yeah, that's my struggle. I feel like LinkedIn forces me to be a square peg in a round hole. And that's a mindset issue. So I don't know how much we spoke on mindset. Maybe this whole thing was on mindset. But we all have limitations. And so that's what I'm working on. But you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, being more of an adult professional.
Sounds good.
Yes. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm not very active on Instagram. I am starting back to be, but definitely on LinkedIn. And yeah, once people send me a DM, I respond as quickly as I see it.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put the information in the description. So thanks so much. Really appreciate your time today, Daniella, and chat soon.